next question comes along, we'll start with the next person, so we're alternating who goes first, not always the same person. There's a timekeeper in the front, and it's 1 minute, and people can all see the clock, and I want to start, and so that's really what we're going to do. We have some questions sent in by our audience. Yeah, I don't know how to turn this iPad on. We have some questions that were sent in. I'll intermingle them with the ones that I came up with, and we're just going to rock and roll. Is it true that they can still submit questions?
Yes, multiple questions.
How do they do that?
I'm going to put the...
So up on the thing that's going to tell you how to do it. You can submit a question, and don't write a tome or anything. Just a short question. Read it right here in this happy iPad. So we're going to start with, I'm just going to do the closest to me. So you can each take 1 minute, kind of introduce yourself, your background, and rock and roll. So go ahead, Mr. Armenta.
Well, good evening. How's everybody doing today? Isn't it a great day to be in Dallas? I tell you what, it's a great day to be a Republican and a conservative in Dallas. Mike is not working? I think it is. It's working? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, for those of you I haven't yet met, my name is Ben Armenta, and I'm working hard every day to earn your vote to be our next Texas Land Commissioner. I'm a former firefighter and a former teacher, and I've been a businessman and an entrepreneur for over 20 years now. And about a year ago, the mandates and the lockdowns were taking their toll on my companies and many of my customers. And I was complaining a lot. And my wife, Christy, came up to me and said, Ben, seriously, enough. What are you going to do about it? And she was right. If we are going to hold the line for our conservative values, and if we're going to stop playing defense and go on offense against Beto and Biden and all the Democrats, then we all have a role to play. I'm looking forward to spending this evening with each of you. Thank y'all. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Now go down the line with Weston Martinez.
Yeah.
Weston Martinez, God bless you. Good to see you. Kind of like what we just did right here. I'm a problem solver. I just can't help it. I just drove in from Sodom and Gomorrah, San Antonio. Look, let's just get this out of the way real quick. I'm pro-life, pro-gun, pro-family, pro-Israel, and most importantly, I'm pro-Texas. I was not endorsed by the Dallas Morning News. I was not endorsed by the Houston Chronicle, and I did not endorse George P. Bush. I've got a business background and a political background, and there's no time for rookies in this seat because we know we have only one shot to save America, and it's a place called Texas. And you better realize that they are coming for us because they want to take what's happening in Canada and bring it right here to your front door. You know what? Because of this group right here, that's why we knew what was going on outside of the Metroplex when that terrorist took those people hostage to that synagogue just the other day. That should be labeled a hate crime from the moment it happened. God bless you guys, and we're going to have some fun tonight.
Hello, Texans. All right. Thanks, Dr. Tim Wesley, and I'm excited to be here. I have a background in education. I'm a PhD in educational leadership with a specialization in higher education. I've been in the college classroom for about 10 years and public classroom briefly, and I'm the current historian for the Republican Party of Texas. So for almost the past 2 years, I've been traveling this great state, talking about all things Texas and history. I'm excited to be here with my wife of 26 years and my youngest son. And I'm just excited about what this opportunity offers to me and also to the great state of Texas. I always tell people that Texas is worth fighting for. And I believe Texas is indeed worth fighting for. I'm not a politician, but I am a statesman. I'm an Army veteran, and I'm a fighter. And so that's what you're going to get from me. Someone that doesn't think inside the box or outside the box alone because I've never gone in the box. So once again, Dr. Wesley.
Thank you very much. Dr. John Buckingham.
Hey everybody, I'm Dawn Buckingham. It is my joy and pleasure to be with you tonight. And I ask you for your vote to be your next land commissioner because we need a proven conservative fighter in this race. I came to the Senate from the school board. I currently represent from Bandera to Temple to Abilene, 20,000 square miles of the heart of Texas. I've been vice chair of the State Board of Educators certification, and I'm the only legislator ever chosen to be victory chair for the Republicans of Texas, which meant in 2018 it was my job to get out the vote and beat Beto, which is becoming a hobby now. So let's do it again in 22, right?
Beto
So
took
we
my county,
know
so
that we are
I'm not
literally at the
impressed.
epicenter for the battle for the spiritual hearts and minds of our state, and not just our state, but of our country. Because we know as Texas goes our nation, and we know that as our nation goes the world. And so that is why we feel that fight now, and that is why you need a proven conservative with a strong record in the Texas Senate. We are blessed by lots of support in this race. Donald Trump, Rick Perry, Ted Cruz, and many others. I look forward to earning your support. Don Buckingham.
Thank you. Mr. Victor Avila.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Benji, for setting this up. Good evening, everyone. My name is Victor Avila. I'm a retired ICE Homeland Security Investigation Special Agent and author. You know, I have 20 years experience of real, practical work on the ground that I'm gonna bring to this office. Straight in, having an advantage that I've been there and done that. I've seen the evil in its eyes from the cartels. My partner was killed next to them by them, and I was shot 3 times. I know the human trafficking that they bring. I know about the human smuggling. I know about the drugs they continue to bring and are poison into our state and to our country.
Is he standing right in
But
front
if
of
you're
us?
okay with that, and you're okay with what's been going on the last year in this state,
His chair's
then
over here.
continue voting for the
That's-
same
that's
career
his chair.
politicians. You'll get the same result. I'm a
Stand in
proven
front of
fighter,
us.
and I will change this office. Thank you.
Here, here.
Thank you, sir. And last but not least, Dr. John Spires.
Good evening,
Not
everyone.
the least
I'm John
of
Spires.
which-
Is this working? I'm John Spires. I'm running to be your next Texas Land Commissioner.
Yeah, he's the good one.
Dr. John Spires, running to be your next Texas Land Commissioner. I began my career as a surgeon, a general surgeon and a trauma surgeon.
I
I
like how he
served in
looks
the
because
Army
he looks
Reserve.
kind of like my grandpa.
I thought I was going to be a surgeon for the rest of my life. I became a heart surgeon, training with Dr. Michael DeBakey. I served people. I thought that was my purpose, but then I was hurt, crippled, lost the use of my hand for over a year, almost lost my arm. I had to retrain to continue serving people. I became an attorney. I learned what it is to fight against government overreach. I learned to identify it in all its forms. And 11 years ago, I identified one of the most critical problems facing our nation, the southern border, and its permeability to evil people, to the cartels. I've been fighting against it ever since. John Spires, running to be your land commissioner. I look forward to learning more about you and you learning more about me. Thank you, and God bless Texas.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, reminding candidates, it's a great job we have right in front of the clock running. We have 1 minute per question, and so we're going to alternate who goes first. So this first question is for, and I'm going to ask each candidate the same question. So if you get to the end and you've heard all the other answers, you think they already said it all. It's okay to say everything they just said, or you may want to add your own. But I'm going to start first with Weston Martinez with our first question. What does this land, yeah, we're now sharing one mic, the happiest mic. The happiest mic gets to be the one, okay. So this little story I told about Jerry Patterson going around the state, nobody knew what the land commissioner does, and so he had to explain and why it mattered. What's the biggest, most important thing the land commissioner does?
Well, you know, Jerry's been a friend of mine for a long time, and he knows that I was the first one out of everybody here to start fighting to defend the Alamo because I'm from the Alamo City. Whenever the liberal mayor of San Antonio tried to start the Reimagine the Alamo program. And I was coming to different places telling them about this and telling them how we needed to get in here and we needed to fight. Look, the textbook answer is that the Land Commission manages all the land in Texas so it can fund the permanent university fund, permanent school fund, and also veterans benefits across the state of Texas. But let me tell you what, there's nothing general about the General Land Office. It's a highly sophisticated technical job. And you better have been involved in a lot of things like land development, like oil and gas, like real estate, like public policy. See, I was a statewide commissioner for 7 years, and I was talking to Jerry, and I said, Jerry, you know, I retired from Southwestern Mill. I got an infrastructure background. Jerry, I've had an oil and gas service company. Jerry, he says, but Weston, don't forget about your real estate background. Don't forget you're a real estate commissioner. It's very important, folks. People don't realize how much real estate is involved in this job and how technical it is.
You're passing it down to your left. So just, if you would please, for our next speaker, Dr. Tim Wesley, what's the biggest, most important thing Land Commissioner does?
Take care of Texans. At the end of the day, take care of Texans. We have over 13 million acres that's managed by the General Land Office, have 6 veteran cemeteries and 9 veteran homes. We also make sure that during Hurricane Harvey or any type of natural disasters that we prepare to take care of Texans, not just respond, but make sure we're acting in advance. And so there are several things that the Land Commissioner does. Also with the Alamo, oversee what takes place at the Alamo. I've been there on the front lines, making sure that we protect the cenotaph, which means the spirit of sacrifice, and we fight to make sure we protect places like the Alamo and monuments throughout the great state of Texas. In addition, that permanent school fund, Texas right now is in the bottom 50 of the states when it comes to our public education. We have over $45 billion that's managed, that permanent school fund, and there's no reason we shouldn't be in the top 10%. So ultimately, in summary, we take care of Texans.
That's pretty good.
Thank you, sir. Dr. John Buckingham.
This office is the tip of the spear to defend our history, oil and gas, and our border against what the liberal left is trying to do. When you look at the Democrat side on this primary, they are leading with they want to stop drilling in Texas. When you look at Europe, and Europeans are literally freezing in their homes, and it is Texas natural gas that is keeping them warm. So we are here to finish the border wall. We are here to defend oil and gas, and we are here to protect our history. If you care about little things like the cenotaph, I was the one that threw down the legal challenge. They kept the cenotaph where it should be out in front and not back around where they wanted to move it. If you know how important our veterans are, when you look at the mortality rate in our veterans' homes compared to similar facilities in the state, that's why I secured $25 million in extra funding so they could all get new HVAC units so that respiratory diseases couldn't be spread in the homes anymore. You need a conservative fighter who's been in there, been proven, and will keep our Texas, Texas. Thank you.
That's an easy answer, is to defend Texas. That's what this office was created. That's what I'll do. I'm gonna start defending Texas at the southern border. Enough is enough. We are being invaded by the cartels. We are being invaded by illegal immigration. We are being invaded by China. I will not sell 140,000 acres next to Laughlin Air Force Base to a Chinese billionaire with ties to CCP. It's about vetting. That's what I did my career, is vet. I know how to negotiate. I've been negotiating at every different level, from the county, state, federal, and international level as a diplomat. I know how to negotiate what's good for Texas and what's good for the United States, and I will put Texas first. The veterans is near and dear to my heart. I will do and think outside the box when I come and do different programs for them. I'm tired of building facilities for illegal aliens. I want to have facilities for our veterans to get processed and get into the VA system, and I will do that.
This is the oldest office in the state of Texas. It was created in 1836, the first office that was created. And it was created to help figure out who owned what, but also because one of the reasons we sought our independence from Mexico was because Mexico had failed to educate our populace, our students, our children in the ways of good civic discourse. And we've been responsible for that ever since. 13 million acres that does not go for the permanent university fund, but manages the permanent school fund. We create revenue for the permanent school fund, which we reinvest in cooperation with the State Board of Education. It then is disseminated to the available school fund. We also manage our veterans' care homes. We also manage veterans' cemeteries. We also have the Veterans Land Board, where we make land and money available to our veterans so that they may purchase or remodel homes. We also make some special land sales to them. We manage our coast. You may not know this, but you manage the beaches. They all belong to you. We have 2 million acres offshore, and I am out of time because the office is so big, you can't do it in a minute.
Oh no, he's charming. Dang it.
Thank you. And finally, Ben Armenta.
Raise your hand if you believe in Texas exceptionalism. This job is the defender of Texas exceptionalism. The number one responsibility of the land commissioner is protecting and expanding the sovereignty of this state. And that means never ever leasing lands out to foreign governments. Never.
Who's this
And
guy?
it means expanding the services that we all hold near and dear to our hearts without strings attached from Biden and the federal government. So let me give you an example. Those veteran cemeteries that we manage right now are partially funded by the VA. And that means that Texas heroes who served in the National Guard or in the reserves who were not called up to combat can't be buried there. I have proposed that I will put half of my salary forward every year that I'm in office to start building a Texas State Veteran Cemetery to again protect the sovereignty of Texans. That's the job that I'm going to do.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to start with our third person over here, and I'm sorry to be reading names, but I don't want to. So we're going to start with Dr. Tim Wesley for the first to go first, and then
Where's the
continuing down to
photographer
the
girl?
left. And I want to just, this is I do think there's an issue where people know what the job is and wait to hear who's really responsible. So, what does a conservative agenda look like? If you're going to be the land commissioner, commissioner of lands, what does it look like? A conservative agenda. What are your top priorities you jump in and do?
Yes, one of the things I want to do is make sure that we take care of our waterways and all things water. Texans don't think about it, but like when Hurricane Harvey hit, all of a sudden we have spillage with sewage and things of that nature. We have to make sure we look in advance. Right now they're projecting that we're going to need 9 million acre feet of water by 2070. That means we're talking an acre and a foot down. That's a lot of water. We don't think about it until we have things such as that storm that came through and we don't have running water and things of that nature. So I want to make sure that we're thinking in advance. We don't want to wait until we have a catastrophe. We want to prepare for it in advance. It's going to be one of the things. I want to make sure that when it comes down to the Alamo, that we just take that off the table. We're not going to reimagine history. As a historian, we need to leave history alone.
Yeah.
Yes, leave it alone. I want to make sure as well that things like critical race theory will not enter our schools. None of the funds will be going there.
Oh, nice.
So ultimately, I want to make sure we take care of Texans. Dr. Wesley.
No, he's doing all right.
A
He's doing better
conservative
than
agenda
Ben.
means build the wall. Most people don't know that the first section of wall was actually a flood control levee project in the valley built by the General Land Office. So it is building the wall, it is protecting oil and gas, it is funding our education and our veterans, and it is being sure that there is no redefining our
She's a pretty
Texas
woman.
history. The left is intentional. When the Marxists come to try and take a country, the pattern is repetitive. You can see it. They debase you from who you are. They create division. They create hate. And that is what we are fighting. That is why this time is so important. And that is why you have to have people who understand how the government works. And I am Dawn Buckingham. Thank you.
So I need you to every candidate every time. Victor Avila, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. I will bring a conservative approach to this office, and that's, yes, defending the border, yes, building the wall, but I also will bring my crisis management experience. I've worked Hurricane Katrina on the ground. Now, this office has done a poor job when Hurricane Harvey hit Houston. I was just with a council member down in Houston and corroborate the story that I've been talking about, how the houses that were flooded in Houston got no money, yet because they relied on this bureaucracy, on this questionnaire. And this is what's not gonna happen with me. What I bring is common sense and logic. I'm looking out the window, it's flooded, I'm gonna get you help immediately. Why? Because I've been there and I've done it from the ground when the bodies were floating. Remember that? And all the people that we took from Louisiana into Houston, by the way, there's still crime written in some of those areas because there was no vetting, there was no security. You need somebody that knows how to deal with crisis management. Thank you.
Dr. John Cyrus.
The first issue on everyone in Texas's mind, of course, is border security. When I travel around this state, and I've gone the entire state, and I visited with the people along the border, they describe waking up in the morning to get a cup of coffee, they look out the window, and
He
there's
has
some
not been
illegal
to Tarrant
immigrant
County.
staring back at them. They're not safe in their homes, they're not safe in their communities. The first issue is securing the border. Disaster recovery is a major job of the land office. I wasn't on just ground zero at Katrina, which destroyed my community and unroofed my home. but I was also at ground zero on Hurricane Harvey. I know firsthand what it means to see your home flooded and to have to rebuild. Now, my Labrador Retriever was happy with the flood, but I was not particularly pleased myself. Now, we have to not only prepare and recover, we must plan ahead.
He looks like he has a
So that
Labrador
when the
Retriever.
next storm comes, we are all safe in our homes. We must prepare to protect Texas, because right now we have a bullseye on our back. We must stand tall and proud against the federal government, and I will do that.
But what about China?
So the question was, what would I do as a conservative? So as a conservative, I believe in small, limited government. You see, small government makes room for big citizens. We absolutely need to localize everything that we're doing with the land office. When there's a flood event, it doesn't just, rain and flood in one, commissioner's precinct or one municipality. It's regional in nature. I have proposed taking the land office, breaking up the bureaucracy in Austin, and identifying regional offices around the state with deputy commissioners who have the full authority to be able to work with you in your local communities to design and develop the solutions that work best for you. It is high time that we stop letting Austin and DC run our lives. Small government makes room for bigger citizens. Thank you.
The Bush family didn't ask me to run for this office, and I didn't endorse George P. Bush. Historically, let me just tell you a couple of things. Number one, day one, I'm going to tell the United Nations to get the hell out of the Alamo. Day one, I'm going to audit all of the transactions between San Antonio and the GLO. Do you know that right now you can't even have free speech in front of the Alamo? They signed an agreement between the GLO and the city of San Antonio saying there's no free speech in front of the Alamo. Folks, what we're seeing here in Texas right now is what the survivors of Auschwitz warned us about. They want to take our homes. What I was saying is that the city of San Antonio signed a contract with the General Land Office. It's no free speech in the front of the Alamo right now. You can bury people in the back of the Alamo and commingle their ashes with the defenders of the Alamo. I'm going to stop that as well. I'm also going to send a letter to Biden telling him we're not going to submit ourselves to the Paris Climate Accord. That's part of the reason why we had the issue we had with our freeze last year. The legislature did not fix ERCOT. We have real solutions, and we have to get to work.
You were the new, okay, yes. I'm even losing track, sorry about that. Okay, so Dr. John Buckingham, historically, under 20% of registered voters on any primary, on average, vote in the land commissioner race. They don't really know what it is, my little story earlier. So how do you inspire people to think it even matters? I mean, as you're going around the state talking, what do you have to tell them to make them realize how much it matters?
I tell everyone it's the biggest agency that touches your lives every day that you have no idea that it exists. We fund education. We fund and take care of our veterans in our state programs. We reach out to people in their moments of most need in the middle of disasters. Something that we haven't talked about yet is there's this new program out from the left called 30 by 30, where they want 30% of each state landmass to be under federal like exemption, easement type of stuff, where they tell you what you can do on their land. And they are using very tricky tactics so that you put these easements on your land themselves and then they come after you. The General Land Office is centered to the fight of standing up and protecting our citizens, our private property owners. I'm the one in this race that owns commercial, residential, and agricultural property. I actually own cattle. I run my ranch. It's a corporate entity. Thank you.
Her ranch.
I love going around the state of Texas and getting people motivated to come out and vote. And I tell them, what you're gonna get with me is a real person. You're not getting a politician. You're not getting a bureaucrat that's been involved and disconnected from the people. I've seen that in my career, the disconnect between Washington, D.C. and the people, the disconnect between Austin and the citizens. And people always tell me, we're tired of that. We want something new. Well, I'm right here. You're getting him. This is a person that came from the street, that has the education, that this office has his name written all over it. If you look at the qualifications of what this office really does, it's defending Texas, it's negotiating Texas at very, very different levels with our land leases and our land sales and our veterans and of course the border. But you're getting somebody real. You're getting somebody that's unafraid. Thank you.
I've traveled the entire state of Texas talking to Texans, asking what their concerns are, because you know what? If you're gonna be a servant leader, you need to understand the issues facing the people that you wish to serve. They'll tell you what they're concerned about, and I've listened to them. But let me tell you a little bit more. You need to have someone in the land office who doesn't just write letters, but who actually can manifest lawsuits, who understands the legal process, who's ready to sign on to the most critical bit of water litigation going on right now before the Supreme Court, who's ready to sign on and understands the process to fight against the clean air grab to control our oil and gas industry. I'm that guy. I have the practical experience to oversee the agency and to make it serve you. John Spires will make certain that we stand tall to protect all Texans from no matter who comes for us.
And you're right, Debbie. People don't know this, don't know much about this office. And that's because we do a really poor job of teaching civics in schools. But this is important. It's really important. And the issues matter. The office sells itself when you talk about schools and safety and security. You talk about our history. You talk about removing CRT from classrooms. You want to talk about conservative values? One of the things our conservative establishment politicians have been talking about for decades has been reducing and removing property taxes. Well, there's two ways that you can do that. One is you can stop spending, and the other is that you need to figure out how you're going to cover the maintenance and operations costs of public schools. Well, the General Land Office is already a mechanism in place that generates over $1 billion every year for schools, and almost a third of our state lands are currently unleased. We need somebody who is a businessman who understands how to lease these lands. I've operated multiple companies with over $1 billion in revenue. You need somebody that's going to run this less like a government agency and more like a business. Thank you, Ben Armenta.
How many of y'all were happy with our legislative session? How many of y'all tried to go testify before the Senate and they said, oh, in order to go, you've got to get a COVID test? Remember that? Yeah. How many people in the Pink Dome stood up for us and our rights so that we didn't have to have that forced upon us? None of them. None. Not even the doctors. What's the point? Folks, if they're going to stand by and let stuff like that take place, how are we ever going to get our property taxes fixed? When we were out there trying to fight gender mutilation, you know who was out there? Me, Sid Miller, Bob Hall, and Brian Slayton. Mm-hmm. The tax relief that we got, they're so proud of. I have my wife and 5 kids. Heck, we can't even get through the Whataburger drive-thru with the amount of money we saved. Let me tell you something. As we went through this and we saw failed leadership, why would you let them have another chance? There's still 2 parties in Texas, but it's not Republicans and Democrats. It's patriots and traitors.
Yeah, that was good timing.
Dr. Wesley.
Thank you, man. What do I tell them? I tell them that Texas is worth fighting for. And I also share my story. My story is one whereby I'm a 2-time Republican nominee for U.S. Congress Congressional District 15. I've been able to go on the front lines with the Border Patrol agents. And everybody talks about the 1,254 miles of southern border and how they're going to secure it. But I'm the only one that can say that I've not only met with our Border Patrol agents, but I also listened to them, submitted proposed legislation through my congressman that was able to get pushed through. It yielded 200 new jobs and $10 million worth of appropriations bill. So I tell them the story as well in close of the young man that came with his mother to an Austin rally. And she said I had to bring him here because he said he missed Dr. Tim Wesley speaking at the Alamo. And so listening to her and that young man, it's about the next generation. And I tell them this office is the place where it starts. Dr. Tim Wesley.
Okay, Victor, I would love to go first.
Yes.
Proceeds from the Texas Land Management go to the Permanent School Fund, which is a funding mechanism for education. On its face, at least as far as I could tell, it's not a decider of curriculum in the Texas public education. So should the land commissioner be active in holding on to controlling Texas school money based on things such as banning CRT?
Absolutely, yes, and I've been talking about it throughout the campaign. You know, the best way I know how to get people's attention, and the way I got the cartel's attention, is to take their money. And if these school districts, like Dallas ISD, they think that they can do whatever they want, I'm gonna get their attention by withholding that money. You can't do that, Victor, you can't do that. That's what everybody says, you can't do it. Watch me do it. I've done things in my career that told me you can't do it. You can't do it. So how do I smuggle Chinese
Those people are
undercover from China, Mexico, into New York? I couldn't do it, but I did. And that's what the experience that I bring to this office. I will stand in front of that money before it's legislatively appropriated. I will get the attention of the school districts. We will not allow them to bring this indoctrination to our kids and teach them this Marxism agenda. We've had about enough of that. We get to control. We want them to have the same Texas values that we bring to this office. Thank you.
The Permanent School Fund is almost $45 billion. The General Land Office did such a poor job in managing the land board portion of that money that a lot of the responsibility for managing that portion has been taken away. There's now an entity called the Permanent School Fund Corporation, which is a joint operation between the Land Office and the State Board of Education. So what do? If you're John Spires, you go talk to the members of the State Board of Education and you say, what are the problems? What are the challenges? How can we work together to grow this money? And in return, what are you going to do to stop critical race theory, or what do they call it now? Emotional social learning? They come up with a new name for it every week. We have to work together so that we can control how that money is distributed. We don't need to build water parks and $60 million football stadiums, as much as I love football. We need to be responsible in how we spend it. We need to work with all the players to make sure it's done the right way.
Well, with respect to some of my opponents up here, you can't do it. The legislature, on behalf of all of Texans, lost faith in the land office because the land office wasn't transparent, wasn't doing its job on behalf of all of you, and they took that responsibility away. So now the only responsibility that the land office and the land commissioner now has is a responsibility to generate as much revenue as possible. Now we need to go back and re-earn that trust. We need to work with our legislature. We need to establish a plan of wise investments for our schools. And we do need to hold our school boards accountable. But the fact of the matter is right now is that all of you, through your legislators, said that the General Land Office has lost the responsibility of being able to appropriate those dollars. And so we got to go back and we got to earn that trust of all of you. And that's what I'm going to do.
You know, when I was a statewide commissioner, I was able to get us to create a fund and set aside almost $3 million so we could build our own building and get outside of the Capitol complex. They said it couldn't be done. We did that successfully. I was chairman of the budget committee for several of those years, and as soon as I got off the commission, that's a heck of a movie, or a tornado. Lord, guess what? As soon as I left the commission, the governor's office took that money. The people in the legislature, they took that money and put it into the general revenue. Folks, we have to be able to go after what we see, and you've got to know how to fight. Winning isn't luck, it's knowing how to fight. When the State Board of Education was having its meeting about curriculum, guess who was there? Me. I'll hold the sign this way. Nobody else in this race was there. And when I started speaking, I told them, I said, I'm glad I'm speaking at the State Board of Education, not the State Board of Pornography. Do you know how many school districts in Texas have to buy the books from the school, from the SBOE? Of the 1,200? None.
As mentioned, I'm not a politician, but a statesman. And as a statesman, I know we have to really think outside of the box. And when it comes down to it, of course, things are already there legislatively. We have to be able to say, this is a platform for the people, we the people. And with this platform, be able to be bold enough to say, I'm gonna do things that hadn't been done. As the next land commissioner, I'm gonna go before these legislators, and I'm going to be testifying, I'm going to be talking. I also, as an educator, having been in the public classroom and also the university classroom for over 10 years, I'm gonna go to these different school districts. I'll be a voice and I'll encourage those voices that are amongst the people in the community to speak up. We'll put so much pressure on the school boards and so much pressure on TEA that they'll be asking us to take that money back and manage it. Dr. Tim Wesley for your next land commissioner.
All right. I have to say, you know, there's sometimes I want to tell you what you want to hear, and then there's sometimes we just have to tell you the truth as it is. And the truth as it is, it would be an abdication of our constitutional duty to withhold the money from public education as it is. We are constitutionally required to give a certain percentage of the revenues that we generate and the interest to the funding, and we don't have any discernment over that currently. That being said, I was very happy to be an active part of banning critical race theory in our schools. But while it is illegal at a state level, we know that it's still happening at the school board level, which is why you've got to engage in your school board races and why the energy and information has to go. Our school boards and our city council races are honestly one of the biggest frontiers on this. Educating our children is the single most important thing we do as a state. It is our God-given duty to educate our students, help them find their God-given talent, and pursue the prosperity that comes from that. Thank you.
Dr. Spires, this is a question. We actually have capacity to send in questions, and there's really tiny font on this, but I'm going to read it. It says, Representative Jared Patterson, Governor Abbott, and others insist that Texas does not have the right to close the border, that only the federal government can close the border. What power do you think you have as land commissioner, or don't have?
There was a lawsuit, Arizona versus United States. Arizona was sued because they tried to control immigration policy, and it was turned down at the Supreme Court. One of the critical things as an attorney that you do when you see a case is you look at it and say, what is different about our fact pattern now? How can we act now that's going to give us a favorable ruling? We're in a different circumstance today than was Governor Jan Brewer when she brought that suit. What we face now is an invasion of massive proportions. Right now, the federal government has admitted that they need to reimburse our landowners along the southern border. Why? Because they're taking their land. It's an illegal taking. Our farmers and ranchers can't actually enjoy and profit from the businesses they have built. They're stealing from us. A different fact pattern. As your land commissioner, I understand we can actually fight immigration policy, build a wall, but also we can take measures to make certain that our DPS, that our officers can work with ICE to shut the border down.
I don't care what Biden or anybody in DC says. We are a sovereign state